We're constantly talking about pricing in managed services. Is the gold, silver, bronze approach the right one? So I go to the source, the Price Whisperer, on this bonus episode of The Business of Tech. Well, Pert, thanks for joining me today.
Well, Dave, thanks for inviting me. I mean, this is it's a pleasure to be on the show.
Now, I got to start. I love the Price Whisperer. Now, how did you focus specifically on determining pricing strategies?
Well, first of all, I didn't invent this. I was called the Price Whisperer enough times, then I decided that why don't I just adopt the moniker, And it's certainly easier to find me by Googling, just by Googling the Price Whisperer. You get lots of hits, But the story here is that I ran a couple of companies in Europe before I moved here to the US, and I've been running a few companies here as well. And we did experiments with pricing, and some of those experiments were very successful. Others were complete duds. And what I had learned in business school and could read about pricing was so academic and so theoretical that it was really useless information. Didn't help us at all to understand why some of those experiments worked and others didn't. So 15 years ago, I decided I was too old and too opinionated to be a hired gun. And it was time for me to set up my own shop. And I developed a process that makes every pricing experiment a success. And what I mean with success here is, next quarter, your revenues may be up to 25, 40%. Your profitability may double, that kind of stuff,
Well, those are good markers of success. So, so let's talk a little bit about the space that we're focused on here. So we're in IT services. I spent my life as a managed services provider, IT services piece. So this is services pricing, and I want to actually I'm going to go straight to the jugular a little bit here and say one of the big mantras we hear in this space is that everything in pricing needs to be subscription based, and everything needs to be packages that make it real easy and productize the service as much as possible so that customers can consume it. And you hear one of two theories. The first theory being that you essentially do your all-in price and you bundle everything up and it's per user or per device every month, or you offer customers kind of the three tiers, right? Your gold, silver, bronze, or titanium paper, or whatever ridiculousness you want to do, right? And that these are the right ways to do it. And I figure I might as well start with so now that on that mess, like, where would you start? What do you think of approaches that sound like this?
No, the key is to make it easy for a client to make decisions, right? So the having bundles of good, better, best is always the best way of doing it, all right? Now, the key is to understand what needs to go into the bundles. And that is a different story than actually create the bundles, right? As opposed to just decide having bundles. And so what we do in my particular company is that we do willingness to pay research. So we go out, and this is the process I developed. We go out in the marketplace and we can, with great precision, understand what a marketplace is willing to pay and what they're willing to pay for, right? And once you know the particular feature, functions, and benefits that they're willing to pay higher prices for, you can create bundles that make sure that you don't leave money on the table. And let me give you an example. A couple of years ago, we did a project for one of these managed service providers, and what we found was that in their market, knowing the sort of growth of AWS and Azure, what we found was that companies wanted to still have their service. They wanted to use the service providers, but they also wanted to have it integrated with AWS. And that particular expertise that this company had developed on that integration between what you typically have in an MSP and with AWS, they were willing to pay very significant numbers for that knowledge, right? So this particular MSP managed to very successfully decommoditize itself, right? Because they had a unique skill set that their competitors and peers didn't have. Or if the competitors and peers had it, they didn't use it as something that added value to their offering.
You said a lot in there, and I want to unpack a couple of pieces of that. Talk to me a little bit about the research that goes into understanding what a customer will pay.
Well, it's online. It's a very, you may say that it's market research on steroids, but and it's online polling, but it's very, very different than what you'll get from a market research firm. And and when it comes to the actual pricing, we have invented a whole series of questions where we ask the audience, and the audience here is the audience to our customers, right? It's not their customers. It's the entire market, which consists of some may be customers to our client, some never heard of our clients, and some are people that could become clients if they only knew they existed, right? So it's that whole marketplace, and we have in the research we have a whole series of questions where we ask that audience to equate perception of value with price. And particularly the perceptions of when prices are so low that they don't think there's going to be any value, right? They think, all right, and we've all been there, we hold something either literally or figuratively in our hands, and we say, I kind of want to buy this, but at that price, I don't think so. This can't be any good, The whatever the seller is promising is not going to be fulfilled,
Right.
So
and in that is both the high end and the low end. So isn't
yes.
And there's some magic to the 3-tiered pricing that I think gets glossed over a lot too, right? Because good, better, best is intended to sort of waterfall you or make you inclined to go a little bit more. Talk a little bit about the way that that's normally done to get people to fit into the right value bucket.
Well, first of all, you will find that almost everybody is going to choose the middle one, right? And the way we work as humans is that when we look at multiple numbers, we always compare those numbers. We cannot not compare them. So, and as we read left to right, you want to start with a high number because that will make the next lower number become more affordable in our minds, right? And so when you set up a good, better, best, you want to make sure that the good is as high as it possibly can, right? Good, better, best. The good is as low and restricted as possible, so nobody really want to buy it, right? And the best needs to be so high and so inclusive of stuff that very few people will buy that either, right? And the middle tier is going to be what provides the best combination of value to customers and sort of cost for the company, right? So and then there's other tricks as you present this. And if at all possible, you can have things like an even higher tier that only sits there for the purpose of being a price anchor, so that what you actually want to sell is appears lower. And this could be prepay for 5 years, right? And it's going to be an astronomical sum, and nobody's ever going to buy it. But that's not the point.
Now, it's interesting because you said something else, and I want to ask about it, sort of a bit of a significant example here. We oftentimes, we're trying so much now in IT services to focus on security as well as the bundle, right? And most of the engineers that approach this will think, well, my best bundle needs to be my proper security implementation that includes everything. It sounds like that actually is not the way that you would really properly want to price it if you're doing a 3-tier bundle. Can you give a little guidance on how somebody might balance that security risk with the pricing bundles?
Well, security is very important, but what's always more important is the ability to differentiate the offering, right? And if security is something, often what we find is things like security is something that a marketplace expects, right? Meaning that they just expect it, but they're not willing to pay extra money for it because it's expected, and it may be other stuff that they're willing to pay higher prices for, and it could be things like guarantees of not uptime, but guarantees of service availability and stuff like that. And for every company, it's important to differentiate themselves, because when you're a commodity, you have lost your pricing power, and if you're a commodity, whoever's got the lowest price wins. And you then enter the commodity death spiral, because you have a commodity, lowest price wins, so you're going to have the lowest prices if you want the business, and that means fewer resource to develop new products, fewer resource to develop new services, fewer resource to market, even fewer resource to hire better people, right? And that leads to, even further compromises in the service and so forth. And eventually, the company is on life support or maybe even tits up,
So what kind of data does somebody need to have, and how much of it, to really approach to see if they're doing pricing right? Like, what do you have to be collecting to know this?
No, I mean, what we do in my company, we collect all the data. First off, we talked about commodity. And if you are a commodity, you can have your prices on online, right? If you can differentiate yourself, you should not have your prices online, right? And also how you present the prices. And let me tell you a story of a very well-known tech company that, and a big company, I think they're 15 billion or something like that. And I got a call from the company, this is a couple of years ago, and he said, our investors are tired of supporting us anymore. We have to become profitable, right? But we can't raise our prices because people are complaining about our high prices all the time, right? And we try to raise it, and it just sales falls off a cliff, and it doesn't work. What are we going to do, right? So I looked at their pricing page, because they had prices online, and it was one of these long pages where you scrolled and eventually you got to the price. But as you were scrolling, the text just completely said, "We are low price. We are the cheapest. We are darn cheap." And then there were endorsements from customers saying, "Oh, they are so cheap," So whatever the price was, that set an expectation of really low prices. So whatever the prices was, it was perceived to be too high, right? So I told the guy, just remove that page, right? And then I followed up maybe a month, maybe 2 months later, and he said, "Oh, you saved us," he said, We took away that that page, and we doubled our prices, and nobody's complaining anymore, and now we're profitable.
Well, you said something I want to ask though about, because my thesis is that more and more of transactions are happening online, and most
Yes.
most modern businesses, including services businesses, need to be e-commerce enabled, and they need to be able to deliver their services and have that purchased through some level of automated engagement. That includes differentiated services. But how do you balance that recommendation of, well, maybe don't have prices on if you're differentiated, from the desire to do online transactions in e-commerce? How do you reconcile those two?
It's about differentiation, because you may want to have some. If most companies have some services that are pure commodity, and some services that are unique in some way. And one of the things that I recommend companies to do is to simply go and categorize those services, right? So say you have your A services that are completely unique. And it may be, maybe there's unique experience, maybe you have staff that are unique, that just like in the example I gave with this company who had a unique experience in integrating the data center with AWS, that is a unique service, or at least was at the time, and should be categorized at A, and don't put the prices online, and don't discount or anything like that. And then you have sort of C services that are completely commoditized, put them online, right? And then you may have something in the middle that you either want to look at and say, can we make this unique in some way, or can we make it a commodity to make it easier for people to buy them? And such a simple thing like categorizing is something that very, very few companies do. They say they're all the same, but they're not, right? And then they have a pricing strategy for everything, which means that commodity services are too high, right? And unique services are too low. And they're leaving money on the table in both cases.
Now, I suspect, based on just that statement alone, there's a couple of patterns that you always see of mistakes. What are the kind of key mistakes that you see over and over again that are those simple ones that people could correct?
Well, the first one is to look at a competitor and set the same price, right? And we talked about that leads to commoditization. The second is to use cost plus in some way. Add, very carefully calculate the cost of delivering a service, and then slap a margin on it that is typically based on what the industry use as margin. And the third one is simply guesswork, right? And that is sometimes it's called market price. But actually, if you're selling grains, oils, or pork bellies, and the market price is truly published, then you have a market price. If you sell something else, you don't have a market price. You don't know, because you don't know what people are actually paying. You don't know what the what kind of deals competition do. You don't know what bundling they do. And if you ask your customers what they're willing to pay, they will lowball it, right? I spoke to the CEO of a SaaS company, and he said, I decided that our price is going to be $165 per user per month. And then he continued, but I don't know. Maybe it should have been $99. Maybe it should have been $250. But $165 just felt like the right price. Is he leaving money on the table in his company? I guarantee he is.
So in the art versus science debate, it sounds like you'd lean toward there's a science to this. Is that a fair interpretation? It's a process.
Science and process is not. It's not art, and it's not magic. It is science and process.
So if obviously, I know that one of the answers is, well, they could hire you, but give people a little bit of insight into what that process looks like to give the people that think they can do it on their own some insights.
What you could do, especially if you're startup, a smaller company, if you have resources, you obviously know what to do. But if you're lacking resources, one thing you can do is go out there and find 25 potential customers. Right now, those are not your existing customers. They're not your existing prospect, and they're certainly not friends and family and the likes. But you find at least 25 of those, and then you ask them two questions. You said you describe your particular service, and you specifically describe your differentiators. And then you say, now when you know what we do and the value that we deliver, what would be a price that is so low for this that you don't think that you think we're going to overpromise and underdeliver, so you won't buy it, right? And then you continue saying, well, and then we take the flip side, assuming now that we're going to overdeliver and our service is going to be better than you can ever imagine. What is a price that is so high that is still out of question to buy it, right? Or just barely so high that it's still out of question. Now, when you have 25 of those points, a low point and a high point, you take the average and you have sort of a range of where your pricing should be, right? Not lower than that and not higher than that. And then, of course, you want to put your price towards the high end of it. And if you continue this process and eventually have 100 data points, and you know all the basics about these data points, then you can maybe see that here's an industry that has a range that is a little higher than another industry. Or here's a size of companies that are a little higher than another size of company. Or here's a specific needs of a set of companies that leads to a different range that companies with other needs and so forth. And that can help you to focus your marketing, your sales, and your business development.
So how often should a company re-examine their pricing? Is there a regularity to that?
It depends on how quickly the business is, or the industry that you're in is moving, and obviously in the MSP business, every couple of years at least, you know.
So what do you say when somebody says, "Oh, you got to raise your prices every year"? Is that a myth, or is that a truth?
Yeah, no, you should absolutely raise your prices every year, or maybe every 6 months.
Okay.
And you should do it in small increments, you know. And nobody's gonna notice at all, you know. Now, having said that, there is something called price walls. These are psychological price points where small price changes can yield very significant changes in sales volume if you cross them. So the only way to find out is either to raise prices, cross them, and see sales volume just drip through the floor, you know, and then of course you have to backtrack and put them back to where it was. But then there's also a process of how you can minimize and move that price pool that we can talk about in you know. And that is covered in my book, also called The Price Whisper, you know, and so you have to do this very carefully. When you're raising prices, you have to monitor sales volume very, very, very carefully, you know, to see that you don't accidentally cross one of those price walls, or you can measure it, which is of course what we do in my company.
So, but if you're dealing with a small customer base, say you've got anywhere from 30 to 60 or 100 consulting clients, sales volume may be hard to measure, right? How much fluidity can you have with pricing when your customer base is that tight and focused?
Well, again, there's a process of increasing prices, and a process of increasing prices, and at the same time keep your customers happy, right? And it's all about communication. It is communication internally and it's communication externally. And to your external customers, you say, well, first of all, we are increasing prices because, and then you have to obviously find the reason that makes sense to your customers, not necessary to you, right? And if the CEO was in the local newspapers the same week with the pictures of his new multi-million-dollar yacht, that is probably not a good timing to increase prices, you know. So it needs to make sense for the client. Often, though, it is that the reason is that we've been absorbing our cost increases now for several years, and we have to pass some of them on to our customers, because otherwise we cannot continue to deliver the level of service that we do, right? But the point also is that this gives the company a reason to remind the client base of the particular value that you deliver, right? So you're also engaging the client in a way that often leads to happier clients, right? Because you have a reason to reach out to them.
So, Per, you give me an awful lot to think about. If people are interested in reaching out, learning more, and getting more resources, what's the best way to get started?
The best way is to just Google The Price Whisperer. You will find my book, you will find me, you will find my company, you'll find my YouTube channel, and all different things, you know. So that's really the easiest way to find me.
Well, thanks for joining me today. I really appreciate it.
Dave, it was a pleasure, and I hope the audience appreciate and learned something during this discussion.
Thanks for your time and attention. Time is a finite resource, and I really value you giving me some of yours. If you like this video, you can let me know with a like of the video, and even more valuable, hitting the subscription button. My content is all free, and I use metrics like subscriptions to pay the bills, so it has real value. The content here is produced under ethics guidelines posted at businessof.tech. If you're interested in more content like this, you can get access to content early via our Patreon at patreon.com/MSPradio. It's our give what you want model, where you set the value of what you think the content is worth. If you like this podcast, you can catch it daily as the 5-minute news and commentary show, The Business of Tech, available on all your favorite podcatchers with links at businessof.tech. Just hit that big blue button to subscribe. Again, thank you for taking time out of your day to listen, and I really value the interaction. If you want to say something in the comments, I do respond and watch all that, and I look forward to talking to you next time.